Greetings, hello, and welcome everyone to Age of Mythology Retold on the PS5. This video, we're going to dive into some advanced controller settings and tips and things like that. How to get better at the controller. Let's say right now you've already watched, say, my intro controller tutorial video, which I'll leave linked down below or on the video itself. And you kind of have the fundamentals, but you want to get a little bit better with the controller, some more advanced things. That's what this video is going to get into. And we're going to go ahead and dive in right away. I'm also going to go into some settings that I think is a little bit better for using the controller. There are some things default that I like to have changed. Let's get into that right now. So you pause the game, you hit settings, and then we're going to go to, let's start with game. And I've changed some things where I think is probably helpful. So immediately auto queue villagers at game start. The tooltip goes away kind of quick. Enable this option to start every skirmish and multiplayer match with villager auto queuing already active. Note, economic auto queuing can be enabled or disabled at any time. So yes, you want to do that. I think that if you're playing a game that doesn't support it, like AoE 4, it's just second nature where you're always training villagers. However, if this is your first Age game or you want to play a little bit more casually, you should do this. And the fact that it lets you do this in ranked multiplayer is wild to me. I think that that is really interesting. So I toggle that on. There's, in my opinion, there's no downside to doing that. It's going to be, you know, even if you forget for a second, this is already going to be better than that. And then immediately auto queue villagers at newly built town centers. You probably want this toggled on too. When you have two town centers, you're double pumping villagers, which you really want that economy going to maximum if you can. Default unit stance, I like aggressive. That means that they're going to attack enemy units that they're aware of. If you want to play a little bit more defensive, you can go the defensive one. That is, to my understanding, they won't attack unless they're attacked first. But they will chase them a little bit. And stand ground is kind of the same, but they won't chase them. And no attack as they do nothing. I like aggressive. Villager double press, you want to keep this the same. It's like villagers performing the same action and idle. And then lastly, if this is not toggled on, controller and mouse walk paths, you want these toggled on. That's where you can see that little blue line in settings. That's a comment I actually get quite often, is that you should, like, how do you do that? And that's how you do that right there. So you want to have those all turned on. I think the rest of these are fine, so we can save. Oh, it takes me out of this, so let's go back in here. User interface, I don't really think there's actually anything different that I've done here. You can kind of see what I have. Maybe you could pause the video and kind of compare it to what you are doing. Sound, I only turned off the game music just for the sake of this video. Controller, this is where I've changed some stuff. And you might, again, want to see what I have compared to what the default is. But where I have changed some stuff is the magnetism. Allow snap to buildings is really frustrating to me. It can just be way too strong. Like you're not even in the same zip code and your camera will snap to a building. And that's not even what you're trying to do. Whether it's selecting a military unit or place a farm or something, in my opinion, it gets in the way. And enable camera snap. I do like that. That's when you're really close. It will snap to something, so if you're trying to select a unit and you just can't quite get your cursor right, that's what I like there. Follow unit after snapping, you can do that too. I mean, usually you're always moving your camera around and stuff like that, but you can do this. And then the attraction veers towards nearby objects. I don't really even know what that is, so I think I turned that off there. Selection behavior, I think these are all default. I can't really recall me changing anything. You can actually change what is canceled, which I thought was really cool. If you don't like that villager preset menu, so like you're not even going to use it, you can just turn that whole thing off, which quite frankly, in my opinion, it is more detrimental as you get better at the game. It starts out as a crutch, and then it kind of becomes a weight on your back that kind of drags you down. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but I do think over time, this gets worse and worse for you, where in fact you end up just fighting it, and it's not really needed. I think all this is default. I did expand the minimap size to maximum. I think that the minimap size being maximum is really critical. Automatic generation of navigation waypoints. You can kind of change all this if you want, but I've kind of left most of that default. All right, so if you can see, I kind of get close to, like, say, actually it doesn't magnetize on the building. It magnetizes on the unit, which I think is a lot better. Now, with our scout, you can send your scout to auto scout by going up here and just tapping up. He will just start running around. Keep in mind, he can be kind of dumb, but if you don't have, say, the APM or the micro despair, that's something you want to do, is always having your scout run around. Since I didn't have that setting, by the way, where I toggled on Villy auto queue from the start, they're not going to do it unless I restart my game. So you want to just train a Villy and then click right on the analog stick. I'm just going to be permanently training Villies. You can kind of see that progress bar up above. You're going to need food and houses to kind of keep your villager production going. Out of the resources that you can gather to what you see here, so the chickens, the berries, the cows, and the elk. The elk is probably going to be the best thing for you because quite frankly, there's a lot of them here. I don't need that. I need a granary. We want to keep it as close to the resource as possible and send our villies over there. Now, once they finish building this drop-off site, they will start doing the task closest to them that relates to that. So going for the elk here. They're just going to start killing the elk. In Age of Mythology, there is something called food decay, which is the food. You can see it's going down. That's because the villies are harvesting it. But if you were to just, say, shoot it with your bow and arrow and then kind of move on with your life and don't gather the food from it, the food will eventually go away. That's kind of like the body is decaying into the ground. In the opposite end of these cows, the food actually goes up. Since they're alive, they're kind of fattening. So you'll see it's dependent on different maps. Some it's cows, other ones it's sheep. You know, it just kind of all depends on the map, which I think is really cool. But nonetheless, there's going to be, they're called herdables. And I usually wait a little bit longer to get them from there. There's also usually like some chickens, so I'll go ahead and, put another granary maybe by the chickens. I need houses. The game's telling me that that's what that yellow icon is. I'm getting close to my house population. I could right trigger, open up and get a house and start building some. Or there's actually a shortcut at the bottom, kind of towards the left. So I could just hit triangle. And I don't want to build one house. I want to build, like, let's say 2. So while I'm holding the left L2, when I hold L2, it's actually going to queue up the buildings. I can rotate them with the right stick if I want. I usually don't do that. And then I'll just put the other one. While holding L2, click it again. So when that villager's done with that first building, you can kind of see the little path there. We'll go right to that second building. We're also going to need food and gold. We want our storehouse to drop off for Greeks that get wood and gold. Kind of in between. If you put your storehouse actually right on the gold, so literally next to it, this is where it's different than Age of Empires 4, is you will actually block your villagers from mining like a whole side of it. So even though, yes, it is technically closer, you're reducing the surface area and where you can actually get that resource from. And that's not good. So you want to have it just a little bit further away. This is perfect. So any future villagers going for the trees can also drop off there as well. Now, you see my villagers come out of the town center, and they're just standing there, not really doing anything all that important. They need a job to do. It's best to do it right when they train, so just set your rally point somewhere. It'll highlight yellow or maybe orange when it's actually selected on a resource, your rally point flag. That means there's a resource that villager is going to. When you just move it to just randomly, see how it's not highlighting? It's almost as if the flagpole is going Super Saiyan. That's what that means, is you're getting a resource. Doesn't matter, any resource you put it on, the flag will be highlighted orange. If you're curious, like, where the heck are my idle villagers? Like, let's say you're maybe looking over here. Up on the D-pad will take you to your idle villagers. And in fact, when you hold up on the D-pad, your controller will vibrate, and now you've selected all of them. You can, as a quick tip, you want to garrison your villagers. It's kind of telling you here. You can just press square on that, and the villagers will run and garrison, and that is actually really important if you are getting attacked by something. You know what? It's interesting. I could have swore I turned off that villager preset thing, and it just flat out didn't do it. That dude's just going to run on by. That's okay. All right, so to get them out, just, you have your villagers looking somewhere. Just go ahead and press square once to do one villager, or if I put them back in, hold square, and all the villagers will be evacuated from that building. If you have the villager preset, your villagers will just kind of automatically move on to the next thing. I still think it is better to manually control your villies and send them somewhere else. I am flying on gold and food counts to go to the next stage, but I need some wood to kind of wrap that up. Meanwhile, I'll activate my god powers with L2 and square. Select the sentinels. You can rotate the sentinels, or any god power for that matter, by using the right stick and then X to activate. Those are the sentinels. We're going to go ahead and build our temple here, right there. And now when these villagers are done, they will kind of start praying. He's attacking my villagers, you madman. That's not very bright. He lost his scout there. My scout is hanging out there. I told him to auto-scout, and he's strangely... Well, I didn't mean to do that. He's not auto-scouting anymore, which is really weird. So we will... Does he just not want to listen to me? I guess he doesn't. Maybe that's a bug in the game. I don't know. We're ready to age up now. You can go to your town center by pressing down on the D-pad. It's kind of a quick way to kind of go about it. I might have just ran into units there. You can also age up by L2 and square. Here's the age up button. You can kind of pick whichever one you want. For the sake of this video, I'm going to go with Athena. Villagers will actually not train when you're teching up, but you can train heroes if you want to go ahead and grab relics. So you can train a villager and a hero unit and age up. I guess not all at the same time, because, again, you can't do a villager and age up. Let's say you want to pick up this relic with your hero. Oh, that's actually a really good relic. You want to send it right back to your relic. Well, while he's doing that, hit L2 and then X on your temple. And you'll notice as soon as he picks that up, he's just going to turn around and go home and drop it back off at the temple, which is exactly what you want. I have some villagers that want to build some more houses, so we'll do this here. And then when they're done, let's go ahead and back chop the trees, all using L2 and X to kind of queue up those movements there. Looking at some of the other radial menus, let's say, oh, this is an interesting location. Let's send a military unit there. Anywhere you're looking with your cursor, let's say I like this rock right here. I want to send a military unit there. Just hold R2 and then press X, and it's going to send, I guess, one of the two there. More or less is what that means. Maybe I want to send a villager there and a hero unit there, and I want to construct something there. I selected a villager, and now I can kind of build something. You can press triangle to go to your military, and we'll build that barracks there. It's all very interesting on how they try to be coordinated with the radio menus and all the rest. Now that we've aged up... Oh, he didn't drop it off at the relic. Maybe you need to babysit him just a little bit to kind of make sure that that happens. You can select all units by holding left on the D-pad. You will feel the controller vibrate if you have that turned on. Let's also build, for the sake of this, an archery range. And then finally, a stable. And then I will send them to the cows after as well. Don't forget that your drop-off building sites, like your granaries, your town centers, your storehouses, you know, whatever your pantheon uses, have upgrades in them. By selecting it and then R2, you are opening up different things. Some of them are locked, of course. One thing I kind of wish that it had was something called pre-queuing, which meant you have the tech queued up before you can afford it. And as soon as you can afford it, you're going to research it. And to my understanding, you can't do that on controller. But you can on mouse and keyboard. You right-click on it. But I kind of just wish that that had occurred. But it didn't. But nonetheless, that is okay. So now we have our military buildings. If you had multiple, you could double tap X to select all of them. I don't have multiple of any, so you're not really going to see me you know what I'm trying to say. Just forget it. Let's say I do want to select actually both the barracks and the archery range at the same time. Well, while I'm holding L2, X on the archery range, still holding L2, X on the military academy. Now I've selected both of them. All right, so now we're actually going to try and build some units here. So we've selected both the archery range, military academy. Press R2, you're going to be able to train both of the units right here. So let's say you just can't be bothered pressing the archery range and then the barracks. You want to actually do both. You can. And you'll notice the yellow progress bars above them will be training the units. Let's say I like that so much, I want to make that what's called a control group. Control group is something where you can kind of save this for later. What you want to do is actually press both L2 and R2 at the same time, and you can assign these to a control group. So I actually want these to be control group 1. While you're holding both of these, you want to, it tells you right there, square. This is now a control group. So now if I want to select my control groups, L2 and R2, no matter where I am, I can move up and press X. Now I've selected both of those buildings. And again, opening up the radio menu will show me those units. So you can kind of do that however you please with however many buildings you please. You can even do it with units. Let's say I like all of these units here. I want them to be control group 2. Well, I do the same thing. Press both triggers, L2 and R2, go over here, square. Now they're control group 3. So I can now, these two units are not in control group 3. Let's say I hit left on the D-pad to select all my units. I'm going to send them here, and I'm like, wait a minute. I actually want control group 3 to, I don't know, go over to these deer. Well, while they're doing that, I've now selected just control group 3, move them there. And you can see they split off because these are control group 3. These two units are not. And now you have successfully managed to separate your army quite efficiently in terms of APM. This didn't cost us a whole lot of micro, if you will, to kind of make this happen. We can also kind of get a little bit into formations. Formations might be important for one reason or another. But let's say maybe you want some more line of sight, so you might want to go in a line formation, or maybe you want to do a more protective formation, so maybe do like a wedge formation. I rarely use these, but they do have their use cases every now and then. It might actually look cooler than it actually is. Your units will automatically set a formation if there's groups of them. So like smartly, you see the archers are in the back. You want the archers in the back, and your hero unit in the front, followed by your myth unit and your regular infantry is. But if you want to change the formation, you select all these units, right trigger or R2. You can see there are different formations with the D-pad. So let's say I want to go to the box formation. I just hit right on the D-pad, and now they're in a what did I just pick? A box formation. So if I move them, you can kind of see that they will readjust to that formation. It actually kind of looks like a triangle. That's probably because I don't have enough units here. I could train more units, and you would kind of see that change. Or maybe you want to go the spread formation. So you do that there, and you can kind of see the units adjust accordingly. Again, the larger amount of units that you select to change your formation, the more that you'll notice how quickly they change. But by default, you are in the line formation. You can also kind of change this as well by pressing triangle. You kind of can see a little bit more of this stuff here. But nonetheless, these are your units. You can also, again, send some units to even some more detailed things like patrolling. You select a unit, hit triangle. Here are some other things. Remember how I told you about those stances? You can manually override that if you want right here for a particular unit. So I've selected Ajax. I don't want him to be aggressive. I want him to stand the ground, which is what is selected right here. He's selecting the aggressive stance. You can change him to stand ground stance right there. You can also say I want him to patrol an area, which means he'll just run back and forth between two areas. I want him to patrol, I don't know, right around there. And then I want him to maybe patrol back. Oh, did I just override it? I apologize. I guess it ends where he's starting. And you should see him run back and forth. I actually do want to make sure that that works and I'm not lying to you. But I think a lot of people prefer to do this maybe with their scouts. As the game kind of moves on, they want him to kind of patrol an area. Yeah, and you can see that he is moving back and forth. I don't really see a whole lot of value in this in PvP. Again, maybe if you want to make sure your opponent isn't, you know, maybe expanding into a certain area, and you want to make sure that you can get line of sight of maybe multiple areas at a time, you can send your units to a patrol and do that. I actually found that to be really cool in skirmish against the computer. I always enjoyed doing that. There are other things you can do as well, such as garrison. Yes, you can put military units inside a building or ship. That's how you'll do that there. And I'm sure you could also probably hit square, and they'll do that as well. It kind of looks like they are obeying that. In a town center, if you don't want to micromanage all of your villagers to get into a town center, say when it is time to get some defense when you're getting raided, you can hit the town bell. And you'll notice all of the villagers will be running to garrison in the nearest spot. And they are smart enough to know how many slots are in which building. Like, these villagers know there's no room for the town center, so they'll go ahead and move over to this tower. And by clicking on the building, you can see in the bottom left actually how many units are garrisoned in said tower. So that one has all 25, this one has 10, that one has 7. And there's probably some maybe in other spots. And if you don't want, you can micromanage all of these individually to go back to work, but they will remember their task if you just unring the town bell. They will go immediately back to the last position and last job that they were doing. So if you're afraid of what's going on with your villagers, you're not sure how many villagers are dying or whatever else, you can just ring the town bell, and they will all do that. I think by and large, that's probably a good stopping point. Again, remember to be sure, always training villagers. Make sure they're not idle like this. They always want to be doing a task. They don't provide any value to you when they're not doing anything. Make sure that with your buildings, your military production buildings, you have multiple of each one. If your economy can support it, you'll just be training multiple military units and get your units back on the battlefield. Utilize the rally point system. So when your units are trained, they can start running to a particular direction. Also, remember of all units left on the D-pad. It will override something like a patrol, by the way, when you manually move your units somewhere. So if they are patrolling and you do an all units and move your military, that will be overridden there. Make sure that you're being mindful of how close your resource drop-off points are, that your villagers aren't going an insane distance. The longer distance they are traveling with resources, the less they actually are doing the work to get those resources. And usually in games like this, in Age of Mythology or other RTS games, more units beats less units. You want to make sure that you're always working on your military. Upgrades might be secondary depending on your use case, but generally speaking, more units beats less units. And just try to build up your military as efficiently as you can. If you have any other tips you want to give players that I haven't covered in this video or the previous one, be sure to drop it in the comments below. Help some new players out with Age of Mythology. And if this is your first time on the channel, we love AOM Retold as well as AoE 4. We post a lot of those games, for both those games actually, on the channel and in our Discord server, so be sure to check all of that out. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.